Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 93. I'm your host, David J. Murphy. I do the show every week with my co-hosts, Ron Hamilton. Ron?
Aloha.
And Zach Roberts, who is not with us tonight. He is not feeling well. He'll join us hopefully next week. All right, we got a great show for you tonight. Our guest this evening is Du-Lin Tu. Du, can you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, I am. I have a couple titles. I'm a professor of journalism at Columbia University, where I teach video production and video journalism, as well as reporting. I also produce video and documentaries, short and long form. So I work in the video space.
Nice. Well, I actually got way ahead of myself here, and I forgot to do our more traditional intro spiel. So let me do that really quick. Around the Lens, in case you've never listened to it before, is a live weekly visual journalism roundtable show. Come at you every Monday night. We talk about news, topics, and gear of the week. And if you want to follow us, share us, like us, do all that fun stuff, donate to Patreon, you can find all of those links at our website, www.aroundthelens.com. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Where are you living out of? I mean, obviously you work at Columbia University, but where do you live? Where do you work out of? Or live out of there?
So based in Brooklyn, that's where I have an office obviously at Columbia, but also I have an office in Brooklyn. But most of my work is on the road, so I can be anywhere at any point. But I like to call Brooklyn home.
Have you been on the road recently? Any place interesting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently working on. Well, I've been working on lots of different projects. Some are gonna come out later, so I can't really talk about them, but I'm working on a long form feature doc that's actually upstate New York, so it's not a big travel, but I do a lot of education documentary work. So a lot of those schools are in the South and Middle America, some in California. So I've been in more public schools than I can count right now, but it's a blast.
Awesome. It's funny you mentioned upstate New York. Have you been to Syracuse recently or lately?
Oh, yeah,
or you go there much?
I don't go there much, but I have been there. There's a lot of, in New York. Where are you guys based?
I'm in Biloxi, Mississippi, and Ron's in Hawaii.
I was actually just in Tupelo.
Oh, okay, cool.
And my previous film was based in Greenville and Clarksdale area, so I'm quite fond of Mississippi, but been upstate a lot for this project. So Syracuse is near where I'm filming, so it's a great part of the state.
Do you prefer one Mississippi or two Mississippi?
Three.
Okay.
Wow. Next level dad jokes right there, Ron. I'd like that. You say you do a lot of video. Is there anything like we would know of your work out there, or is there anything you'd like to point us to or tell us about that you've done in the past that is particularly popular or gaining interesting?
Yeah, I work in long form, so a lot of my projects take a long time. A few years ago, a film called Deep South came out, and it had a theatrical run. It's available on Amazon now, and I think other digital platforms. I'm working on this long form doc, but I have a lot of short stuff on online. When the Standing Rock conflict happened with the Sioux, we were there. We were covering it. A partner and I were covering it both in print and video for places like Vice. So a lot of web-based work.
Long form documentary is something sort of like a hidden passion of mine, and something I'd like to kind of do more so in the future. Have you found it to be something that is sustainable? I mean, with regard to making a living off of? I mean, or is it something that you do more of like a passion project, and you're not going to really make any money off of it, but it's important to tell these stories?
I mean, I think that's a great question, and I'll be totally honest. In the past, we didn't like to talk money, right? Like journalists and videographers never like to reveal how much funding they got or how much things cost, because it felt kind of dirty or not a part of what journalists talk about. But I think I'd love to. These days, I love talking about it. So that's a long preamble to get to the point of no. It's very hard to make money. There's one or two Alex Gibneys of the world that can just Ken Burnses of the world that get huge multi-million-dollar projects, and they can off of that. But that's the rarity, and I think most people are in like my shoes. We can crank out a film every 4 to 5 years, largely funded on grants, blood, sweat, and tears. But it's one of those things we do, and and it's a gift to do it, right? And so the fact that we can kind of architect our lives around that, you know, get jobs that will pay and allow us to do this work. So for example, you know, my real job is being a professor, but I don't think I could teach it without doing it. So I actually have to do it for, you know, professional development, so to speak. But also in reality, you know, if I were just living off of that, I would, you know, you just you barely get raised enough money to actually fund the production, let alone have a life.
Yeah. I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be nice if you could actually exchange blood, sweat, and tears for currency? I mean, that would just be, I tell you, I would be down at the blood, sweat, and tear bank, just donating it all.
Yeah.
That sweet, sweet
you get like
documentary filmmaking money.
Yeah. You get minimum wage at least, right?
Absolutely. All right, well, let's get on with the show. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Our first topic this evening is, do you ask about photo settings? So there was a story posted on Petapixel. Not really a story, honestly. I mean, story in the lightest terms, in that basically it's commentary on a video. But regardless, the video is the topic, and it's Tony Northrup who's talking about some of the photographs he shot, and that basically he's frustrated when people ask him the settings on a photo he took, because the photo and what goes into it is so much more than the settings themselves. And he just, it frustrates him because, you know, the settings are arbitrary with regard to the results. I have mixed feelings about this. I don't totally disagree with him, but I don't totally agree with him. But before I give my thoughts, let me throw it over to you all and see what you think. Let's start with you, Do.
I mean, it's you know,
you think
it's you know, as a camera guy, you know, as an educator, I always get questions, you know, whether it's photo or camera or editing software, you know, do you use Final Cut or Premiere? And so I think it's a valid question. It's hard because if you're, you know, when you get, I think the article is, you know, the videos by Tony Northrup. I mean, I feel it's a little disingenuous. You build an empire through educational videos, right? And you're going to get mad at someone asking a question. Now, of course, there's always clowns out there that would rather pixel peep and talk about gear than the actual art, and that's fine. But there's actually young people or inexperienced people out there that really don't understand shutter speed, for example, or don't understand ISO. And you know, if you're going to be an educator, you got to be an educator. You don't get to really, at least in my opinion, as an educator, bad taste to pick and choose, you know, the issues that you think people should learn from you if you're putting yourself out there as an educator. But I can understand his frustrations, but man, you have a lot of subscribers. You're making YouTube money off of it. Get over it.
Yeah. Ron, how about you?
Yeah, I don't mind if people ask me about my settings. I think it's fine. I've got nothing to hide. When I post photos online, the EXIF data is embedded. And if they want to take a look, or if they want to ask me why I did this or that, that's fine. When I ask people about their settings, not very often. You know, I know some professionals that just shoot in P mode. Not very many, but I know a couple of guys that leave it in P mode and say, hey, it's good enough. I'm out here. They're all about the framing and whatnot. The camera does good enough. And I don't know what my settings were.
Yeah, basically, you know, most pictures are taken on an iPhone or a smartphone, and that's all P mode. So, I mean, you know what, you know, it's the way we live, and settings aren't that important. But if someone wants to learn, just tell them your settings, or not, but don't bemoan it.
Yeah. So in watching the video, like the instance that he is, you know, when people are asking him, you know, they're asking him, apparently it shows like he shows off printed photos, right? And they're asking him his settings on that photo. And if you're asking somebody the settings on a printed photo, that is stupid, because they're so far removed from the actual, you know, actual image by that point, that to ask, it's like, I can't flip this photo over and tell you, you know, what my ISO was, what my shutter speed was, nor would I even remember that. I mean, honestly, you know, I mean, there's hundreds of photographs printed in my house. I can even begin to tell you what the settings were for any of those shots, but I can tell you for my personally, you know, when I look at a photo, I can infer, you know, whether or not it's at high aperture or low aperture, whether or not I can kind of infer the shutter speed and whatnot. If it's grainy, I can infer the ISO. You know, I can infer a lot, but that's, of course, because I'm experienced. Now, I can understand where you're coming from if you're a beginner or if you're someone who's still trying to learn the settings, where you would ask that. And I mean, honestly, I wouldn't get frustrated if somebody asked me my settings, or, you know, were curious about that, because I think at a minimum, they're interested in what I'm doing. You know, they're curious enough to ask. They're taking the time. You know, most of the time I publish, you know, photographs online. Nobody asks me anything. Nobody inquires about my stuff, you know, to actually care about what you're doing. You know, I can give a general answer. I can tell, like, oh yeah, you know, low aperture, high shutter speed, I guess. I don't know. So I can see, like, you know, if you're out in public and, you know, you're looking at photos on a wall, to ask like settings, I mean, that's kind of, you know, ridiculous, because it's like, I don't know what the settings are, you know. But if it's like published online, I would, you know, I definitely am curious about settings. Like, for instance, when I see photographs, when the photograph of President Obama was published online when he first became president, you know, that was an interesting photograph for me, because I downloaded it and they upload the full raw photo, so I could see all the settings associated with that photo. And I was really curious about the settings, because I mean, what kind of camera and settings what kind of camera specifically they use to photograph the president? You know, is it some super duper special secret camera that, you know, only used for presidents? Like, no, it's a Canon 5D Mark II, the same camera I had. And, you know, to look at the settings was just more of a curiosity factor, like aperture, you know, are they shooting at, you know? So I think settings are definitely valid, but in a different context. Like, I think definitely online, you know, if you have the Flickr or something like that, you know, I know they preserve the settings. They're interesting for me, but I don't necessarily look at someone's settings and think, oh, I'm going to change the way I shoot. You know, I shoot the way I shoot because of what I like, you know, in terms of my personal style. I like very low aperture photos. You know, that's just my thing. I usually keep my cameras on aperture priority and keep it the lowest possible setting 90% of the time. And I think a lot of people do it like that. But, you know, I think settings are valid, but I think, you know, asking for settings in a personal or a physical in physical environment is kind of a waste of time. At least with regard to specifics. You know, in general, yeah, you can give the generalities. And I think, you know, he's, like you said, at a point where he's sort of built his career and he has this sort of almost fame that goes along with him. So he probably gets asked this question a lot. And therefore, I think anyone who's asked the same thing a lot probably gets frustrated by it. Just like, I'm sure if I was a celebrity and I got asked to, you know, give my autograph all the time, I'd probably be tired of that as well. So I think they're just trying to get.
Yeah, it's a part of the game, though, right? I mean, if you're going to put yourself out there and get subscribers on YouTube, that's what you're asking for. You know, same thing with the celebrity game. And you know, and I said, it's not that he's going online as a photographer. He's positioned himself as, I don't know Tony, by the way, he's just positioned himself as a photographer, educator as well. So, you know, if I said I'm an educator, when, you know, I've had hundreds of students in your past, they email me every day, hey, what camera do I get? I never get mad because, you know, they want an honest opinion about that. But one thing I meant to say is with the settings data, I actually love that in Flickr. I often say, oh, wow, this was a T2i, a camera that came out 10 years ago. Look at the great picture. You don't need the latest gear. Look at this, right? So sometimes it works better that way to show someone who's young is like, just don't worry about your gear. Don't worry about the settings. Just go out and shoot more. And sometimes settings are helpful in that way. Yeah.
And I mean, I think he makes a good point when he talks about the fact that these shots require a lot of background work, you know, like his shot of the model in the ravine or lake or river in LA. You know, he talked about the backstory about how he made connections and stuff. I mean, that's great. Talk about that, you know, use that as a platform to talk about, you know, the other aspects of photography that we don't talk about, such as making connections, such as, you know, having to put in the elbow grease to actually, like, you know, be friendly and communicate with people. You know, you can't just be a photographer who's living on an island and not communicating with anybody and expect to be successful. You have to be open. You have to be somewhat, you know, extroverted to be good at this, you know, career field, because that's how you make connections. So, yeah, use that opportunity, you know, as a way to, you know, springboard into that conversation, which he did in this video, and I hope he does more so in, you know, in real life. And that's what I would do, you know, if I was frustrated by it. But yeah, it's the celebrity paradox, you know, where it's like, you get famous for something and then you don't want to deal with that thing anymore. It's like if I became famous for this podcast and people ask me, like, what kind of microphone do you use? What kind of podcast platform do you use? You know, how do I get into podcasting? You know, those are things I would be flattered and happy to ask and answer. But if I'm asked that 500 times a day, I'd probably get tired of it at some point and then just post a video online, be like, here are my settings, leave me alone. I'm tired of answering this question. So he's probably just tired of answering the question about his settings because, again, in his mind, it isn't relevant. But again, he's not a beginner. So, he's probably so far removed from that as an experience level that he has no idea why people are even asking that question anymore, And it's tough, because again, we all achieve a level of, a level of expertise in our career field. And then we kind of forget, oh, we were like stupid beginners at some point. And we were trying to learn as well,
Well, I think that's why I actually like teaching at Columbia. My students ask really, I think, questions I would forget having done this for a couple decades. And the questions are fresh and they're not useful. They often force me to examine how I approach situations. So I love it. I love questions in that sense. It helps keep me fresh. It helps keep me thoughtful. And there's, one of the great things about youth and inexperience that I see year after year at Columbia is just curiosity. And sometimes old fogies, you get doing enough and you get enough experience, the muscles build that memory. And it becomes very easy to just go through the motions. So I think, not to get too philosophical about this, but I think that, that inquisitive thing that you're right, it is a paradox. You get famous, you answer these questions, you don't want to answer the same questions. Yeah. But sometimes answering those questions is helpful to you. And that's something that, you can't really dismiss or shouldn't dismiss.
Agreed. Any other thoughts from you, Ron?
Don't ask me about my settings.
What kind of settings do you use on your video camera, Ron?
No, just never mind. All right, quit asking.
You guys too famous?
There's no settings on the high 8 camera, right?
Right. It's all point and shoot.
Like
buddy.
Ron just sets the P or the green square. Whatever happens, happens.
Hey.
I tell you, I'm most interested in like things that come with like video and stuff, in terms of settings, because that's what interests me. Like I can garner basic details from the visual, but it's really sort of like the background stuff, the editing software and stuff that intrigues me now. By the way, I use Premiere for the most part, but I am switching, or I'm planning to switch off of all Adobe platforms to non-Adobe platforms here soon. I'm just waiting for my like year contract or whatever to end with Adobe, and then I will go. You know what? I mean, it's like I can't justify the cost. Honestly, for me personally, I can't justify it. If I was making money doing this, I could justify it, but until I do that, it's not really my thing. So I'm going to try some free platforms and see how far I get.
Cool. And it doesn't matter, like most software, they do 90% of the same thing. So, free, spend your money on more important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing like super duper high level editing stuff that requires, what Premiere brings, I would totally be down with keeping it. But I mean, I edit this show in Premiere. I do a few other things in Premiere. I'm not doing super high level stuff. And honestly, the free stuff has become very, very good quality. Like, I don't know what the program is. I think it's like DaVinci Resolve or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's like free. I can do free 1080p and free 4K editing, with it. I'm like, that's all I need. So I just got to make the program work. But that's a different topic for a different day. Let's move on to our next topic this evening. Our main topic, actually, the topic of the show, which is visual journalism versus traditional journalism. So there have been some articles recently. The one specifically that I'm talking about, which you can read about in the show notes, is talking about the pivot to video. So, I'll be honest, I absorb a lot of news and information in my personal life through video. I mean, I'm watching YouTube constantly. And I would say I would probably, 10 to 1, I absorb information through video versus through like written means. So this article is sort of, talking about that subject with regard to the overall lamenting the death of traditional journalism and people who just write stories in favor of the more creating video content instead. So let's throw it to you. You were suggested as being a subject matter expert in this topic, so I definitely want to hear what you have to say about this. Do you think that journalism is on its death knells and being replaced for video journalism or visual journalism?
Well, I mean, that's a kind of a heated topic these days, and actually I wrote a huge rant on Facebook, and I've commented quite a bit on this term pivot to video, and a couple things. It's an annoying term for me, and not maybe why most people think. So your first part of your question, is journalism dying? Absolutely not. People read more than ever. They watch more than ever. Now, the business of journalism for the last decade has had problems, but not journalism itself. The act of journalism has never been at a brighter moment, right? The act of consuming journalism has never been more plentiful or diverse for most viewers. So it's actually an exciting time to make the stuff. It's a less exciting time to make money off the stuff. So, you know, that's
the other key factor.
Yeah, the other key factor, and of course they're inextricably linked. But that money making thing, I think you can engineer. You can figure out. Smart people figure out. But some, in the quest for kind of bundling it all together quickly, have, in my opinion, wrongfully seen video journalism as a financial savior. It's just not, and it's one of those things where a lot of news entities have decided to switch over and make broad movements in terms of staff and resources from a media presentation that is one way with largely photos and print, moving to video. Now that's fine. I love video, and I'm like you too, where in the sense that I watch a ton of YouTube. You know, whether it's news or entertainment or, you know, how to fix something around the house, YouTube is my default search engine, right? So I
Any
consume
particular
that way.
favorite subscribed channels you want to
watch? You could just subscribe to a bunch of them. They're mostly camera nerds, so you know that I follow the likes of me, if you will. But the thing that annoys me is that you can't just pivot to something. You know, in my rant that I had, and I said, I get that news organizations want more money. I get that. I said, I want more money. But I'm not going to pivot to managing a hedge fund, right? Because I don't know how to manage a hedge fund. I've never done it. And a lot of news organizations are not taking the time. They think suddenly, oh, you know what, today we'll call ourselves a video platform. It just doesn't work that way. And so the net effect is a couple things. First of all,
man, this happens like every week, dude. We're starting to lose you.
You've lost a lot of talent. Second, you're shifting your business model, but based on no real facts. There's no facts that say more video on your website will result in more money. So someone like David J. Murphy, you might have a successful, YouTube channel. You might start getting 100,000, 1 million subscribers. Then the money starts rolling in where it can afford David J. Murphy. But that model doesn't support a media company, right? And so a media entity. So they start pulling metrics like Facebook views. Well, that's a game that could be rigged. So there's no facts in the fact that, you know, my video has 3 million views. That means nothing. You're not getting the revenue. Actually, you're spending the revenue to get those views. So not only does the production cost a lot, but you're also spending to get the viewers. So, you know, so it's based on a lot of false ideas that video, by starting the operation, you're going to make money. And the third thing that I guess maybe, you know, the one that really annoys me the most is that it's a degradation of a form that I'm obviously very personally tied to. Video storytelling is a craft that requires a lot of training, a lot of discipline, a lot of practice, and a lot of time, and a lot of money. So you're putting people into this position to almost fail. You're going to hire a 23-year-old kid and tell him that he's going to produce 7 videos a week, and they better get 3 million views. So first of all, 7 videos a week is impossible unless you make crap. And 3 million views won't even pay his salary. So this is the cyclical nature of this kind of pivot to video that just does not make sense. And also there's a lot of FOMO in the industry. It's like, whoa, that publication is doing it, I better do it. And so, you know, it's the tail wagging the dog in my industry. And so it's really frustrating to watch this, because you're going to lose the talents of a lot of good people. You know, you're going to lose talents of a lot of people who want to report, who want to investigate, who want to say, you know, that mayor's a crook, and this is why the mayor's a crook in my hometown, and don't vote for him, or you better spend this money on that bridge or your car's going to go over the edge, right? So you're going to lose a lot of those people that give you the journalism that we all really need, in favor of a really you know, kind of flashy, trendy thought, which is video. And this is coming from a video guy. So I have no no stake in saying that there shouldn't be video. There should just be smarter video.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, how do you reconcile that with your students? You know, if you're telling them, like, don't take the job, we have to do 7 videos a day. Like, what do they do? You know, after they're done with college, they got a degree. What do they do? You know, what if that's the only job available? What job do you recommend they apply for? Where should they work? You know, I mean, obviously, you got to degree carrying folks graduating every year. What do they do?
Well, I think we live in a time where there's more options. You know, I don't want to age either of you guys, but I'll speak for myself. When I left grad school, it took me, I went to work at a major network, and it took me about 6 months to get about a minute of video on the air. I busted my tail, I pitched stories, they were rejected, and 6 months later, I got a minute. My students can put a minute up now, right? And no, they won't get paid because I had a salary at the network. So it's two apples and oranges things. But at the end of the day, I tell my students, do you want to make video? And they say yes. I say, well, that's not actually a good enough answer, because that's kind of like saying, I want to make food. Like a chef saying, I want to make food, or I want to make art. That sounds really nice, but what kind of art do you want to make? What kind of food do you want to make? And what kind of videos do you want to make? And so if your goal is to make an hour-long documentary on homelessness that in your hometown and you're just dying to tell, well, reverse engineer that. Work at Starbucks if you have to. Work at your local TV station if you have to. Work 3 jobs if you have to, or become the best grant writer in the world and figure out how to get grant money. So the goal should not be the job necessarily, and there's nothing wrong with having a job. That's a very noble goal, and most people should do that. But if you're going into journalism, you already by definition your goal set is a little bit different. I want to tell in visual ways the story of refugees. Great, grab a goddamn camera, go to where the refugees are, and figure out how much it's going to cost you to be there for 6 months. Then that's where you start doing it. And so that's what I tell my students. And so this whole pivot to video thing is like, oh no, we're going to do the video and then we'll figure out the rest. But the video means nothing without story. And so that's the frustrating part. And it goes for film, and it goes for stills as well. It's the same kind of problem that we face.
Yeah, I was thinking about the content that I watch online, and again, like I said, a lot of it is YouTube. And while I am absorbing primarily video content, I can tell you the people that I watch online are building that content from other media sources. Like, for instance, like Philip DeFranco, right? He's a very popular YouTuber. He does, daily sort of discussion about the news. He would have nothing if there weren't other news agencies generating the news for him, Or, for instance, there's another YouTuber, Colin Moriarty. He does a lot of long-form sort of videos about news and history. And I was watching a video of his today, and it was all his sources cited were from mainstream news media, New York Times and stuff like that.
Sure.
So, it's like symbiotic in that, one can't exist without the other in a lot of cases. So even if you are making money and supporting yourself with, Patreon or with, whatever, working your 3 Starbucks jobs, you still need someone out there on the ground putting the elbow grease into the actual reporting. I think if, unless we get to a point where perhaps, these YouTubers, which, even if they did, they can't afford to hire journalists to do the hard, fact finding and reporting mission for them for their content. They're relying on the free sources of information that they're finding flowing through the, the media, through the internet. So yeah, I don't see journalism ever going away, but it's like how we absorb it is definitely, changing. Whereas maybe a few decades ago or a decade or so ago, we, primarily got it through like the newspaper or something like that, or, even reading articles online. That's really, the advent and, propensity of amount of video out there. It's just too easy to, watch a video, which has sometimes led to very crap content being, turned, like, for instance, someone just reading you a news story, it's like just so they can have the video portion to go with it.
Right.
That I find is kind of annoying as well.
I think you're right.
I don't know. Ron, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, do. What was that, Stu? You're saying something, do?
No. Sorry, go ahead, Ron. I've been blabbing too much.
No. You're the guest. We have you here to hear what you have to say.
Well, basically, it's hard. You bring up Phil DeFranco and a whole legion of YouTubers. I actually love that platform. I love the fact that someone like a Casey Neistat, or I don't like his content, but good for him for getting into space where he can cut a deal with CNN, right? Or Phil DeFranco, good for him for educating 4 million subscribers or whatever he has with his stuff. So I never bemoan that fact, and I think I have a weird, in terms of my colleagues' viewpoint of things, it's like I've never felt that I was entitled to be paid to do journalism. That's going to sound crazy because I teach at a very expensive school to potential journalists, right? But me personally, I never felt that I was entitled to get paid. I felt I was entitled to the right to do journalism, right? And I had to figure out how to make that happen. So, early on in my career, you take the shitty jobs, right? And that allowed you to meet people doing the journalism that you want to do. So I was never in, and then if I couldn't afford it, I did shittier jobs to kind of get more money. Right? I'm sorry, am I dropping profanity? Sorry about that.
Get my plane rating.
Yeah. So really, the point I'm trying to make here is that with a lot of journalists, they're like, well, YouTube's taking our money or Google's taking our money. Well, they're not. They developed a platform that you should have developed. One of the things that kills me is that a photographer did not invent Instagram. That is the thing that totally kills me. A photojournalist did not invent Instagram. Wait, in the field, you always bemoan the fact that not enough people are seeing your work, and there's this thing called the internet. One of the thousands of us not come up with that, right? And I think it's our allergy to technology. And so David, when you put a show together, you had to go out there and learn how to sync the three of us, how to invite guests, how to put up your website. That takes a little bit of hustle. You didn't feel like I'm entitled to have a podcast show. I got to work for it, right? And I think the fact that a lot of journalists days in this digital platform love when their stories go viral, but they never want to take a step back and go, well, how can I be a part of that? How can I think in those terms? And Mark Zuckerberg was a nerd from Harvard, a computer science dude, but he essentially owns journalism now. And how come we messed that up so bad? Or if you go back even further, how do we allow Craigslist to ruin our whole classified model, right? Because we didn't do the work. We felt like we were entitled to all that money that came with journalism. I think that's a big fault, and I try to teach my students that a lot. It's like, you want to do this? Fine. You also want to eat, right? And maybe you want a house, and maybe you want to have kids one day, or maybe you want to have a 401k. Okay, those are all the things you want. Reverse engineer, because no one's going to give it to you. And so I think in the journalism industry, by extension, we thought about that because we were sitting on 40% margins. Put out a newspaper, cost us X, and we were just minting money, right? Because the ads, we owned the billboards, we owned the classifieds, we owned everything. And for years, we just kind of chilled out and just let that money come in. It gets disrupted. Phil DeFranco makes money. Casey Neistat rolling around on his skateboard is making more money than a seasoned journalist. Well, you know what? He goes out every day and he makes a video. He goes out every day and makes a video that speaks to a certain population, right? Powerful enough population where Jeff, Zucker at CNN goes, you know what? I'm going to give that dude 25 million. Maybe it's a bust, but maybe something's here. So I think too many journalists don't think about the technology that's available to them. You don't have to have a computer science degree these days, but also they don't think about how can I engineer the life that I want. And that's saddening. That's not a word. That's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about this show, because you mentioned my podcast, but we rely a lot on the journalism done by others for topics, for this story, for this, for the show, just like the Ringer here has produced the content that we're talking about right now. And, I think a lot of people do that, similar thing where they rely on content produced by others. So I'm very thankful that this content exists. And, if it wasn't, then I think we'd have less to talk about, or, we'd talk about the same things over and over again. Right, Ron?
It happens.
It does.
What are your
but,
settings?
But you know, again, I'm thankful for journalism. Hope it sticks around. But yeah, I'll probably just continue to watch other people comment on the stories, because ultimately, you know, I'd love to sit down and read half a dozen news stories about content, but I don't have time for that. If I can watch a Philip DeFranco, or you know, perhaps a Casey Neistat condense the news for me into a nice bite-sized video, then I'm all about that, because it gets me back out the door quicker. I would say with Casey Neistat and, you know, his Beam News agency on, you know, CNN or whatever, you know, at the very minimum, I think, you know, that what I like about that news service is that they actually go out and create content. You know, they actually create news by going, or they, you know, they generate reporting by actually sending reporters to locations and whatnot. So, you know, I will give them credit for that. Of course, they are backed by, you know, one of the largest news agencies in the world, CNN. So they have that sort of, you know, background and backing, and also financial support to be able to do that thing like that, you know. But I think, you know, with the people on the ground, with the smaller entities where it's like myself, or, you know, someone who isn't a big news agency, you can do a lot of things in a local environment. You can generate stuff locally. So. It sounds like the cops are coming for somebody. I don't know who.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll create news on the show tonight.
Let me just add one thing about that. You know, there's so much value add that you or Philip DeFranco do, because a journalist could be doing what you're doing. They could get a round table. They could share those ideas as well. They can further promote their stories. But we never think in those terms, right? We never think about leveraging. And also, Casey Neistat can go out and do all this reporting because he was given a lot of money. But prior to be given that lot of money, he had to produce a vlog every day. That is, I try to wrap my head around that while doing other things in life. I just can't fathom. For good for him, he should have gotten 50 million from CNN, right? Because who else can put out a vlog every day and your numbers suddenly reach in the millions of viewers? Because at least, which means your content's at least interesting enough to a certain population. So you know, there's so much value add that these guys do. They just don't show up one day, because there's a lot of YouTubers that don't have any followers as well, because they do one episode and they quit. Well, what do you have? You're on episode.
I wasn't going to mention any names.
I think we're still at around 80 something or 90 something. We may be close to 100. I don't know. I haven't checked it recently.
Yeah, but most people stop at, you know, between 3 and 5. And they call it a day. So I mean, it's all work. It's like I said, you got to go and reverse engineer and blood, sweat, and tears, right? Worth minimum wage, but it's worth something.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron, anything you got to say before we move on?
No, you know, speaking as a consumer of media, I understand what you say, Dave, about multitasking, about getting the stuff compressed for you. But if I really want to know a story, I still read print media. If I want to learn in detail things, if I want to get a bigger story. Video is nice because I can wash the dishes while I got YouTube on. Audio podcasts are great because I can listen at 2x and I can listen to several hours of audio, you know, over the course of a day.
Podcasting, it's totally the future.
It is, I think so.
You know,
but when I really want to, oh, there's a
no. Go ahead, Ron.
There's somebody behind you. Watch out.
No.
That's in case you get attacked. I wouldn't want to warn you. Yeah, not to warn you. No, that's it. Yes, as a consumer. But it's interesting saying that because I don't produce written content. Everything I do is video anyway, so I guess I'm part of the problem.
Yeah, Ron. Jeez, God. All right. Well, let's go on and move on our last topic this evening. We're talking about the iPhone 8. Of course, the iPhone 8 just came out. You know, it's the sort of phone that I guess some people will get because they don't feel like waiting for the iPhone X. I'm going to call it X because I'm going to be different, even though it's called the 10. Anyways, people don't want to wait for that, so they're getting the iPhone 8. But good news, it apparently has the best phone or best camera of any camera phone out there. So if you are a photographer, then this should be good news to you. Although it always, you know, for me, it's like from my perspective, it seems like every time there's a new phone, it's always like, oh, this is the best phone. Like the Samsung Galaxy S8, it's the best camera. Oh, the iPhone 8, it's the best camera. You know, so it's like kind of it's kind of a moot point. But, you know, it is nice to see that the phone market, the phone, area is advancing, with regard to camera quality. I mean, I can tell you that the first phone that I had that was a smartphone had a very horrible camera on it. It was like 320 by 240 or something crazy like that, and shot very blurry, pixelated images. And now we've gotten to a point where, you almost don't need a DSLR, or you almost don't need, I wouldn't say you don't need a DSLR, but you definitely don't need like a dedicated point and shoot camera nowadays. You can kind of, definitely be okay with a camera phone. So I mean, it's good to see again that market moving, and glad to see the iPhone 8 is the best camera on the market. But what do you guys think of this? Is this something you're interested in, Ron? Ron, are you gonna run out and get the iPhone 8?
I'll start because I want Dude to go, and he has a lot of stuff. Speaking camera phones, we started out with 1.3 megapixels. In fact, if you're familiar with the actor Joel Grey, he wrote a book. You don't know Joel Grey? Oh boy, kids. Joel Grey was well, he's in a lot of movies. Let me think here. Google him. Look up on IMDb.
Okay, I'm gonna do that.
I can't think right now. But anyway, Joel Grey, famous actor. He wrote a book called 1.3. And the reason the title of his book was 1.3 is because it was a book of photos taken with his camera phone, which was 1.3 megapixels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I bought a copy of his book because I wanted, even at that time, I recognized that cell phones were the future for communication and for, media. Even at that point, I recognized this is going to be the future, guys. We hold in our hands the capability to take a picture and send it to somebody across the world. This is fantastic. 1.3 megapixels. I don't recommend his book 1.3. It's a bunch of crummy photographs, small little postage stamp prints, because that's all you can print on a page. But nonetheless, as I was shown later on, it did happen that things got better. iPhone 8. Boy Genius Reports, BGR.com, I think. They ran a story last week called iPhone 8 versus Galaxy Note 8. It's not even close anymore. Something like that. And went all about the quality of the iPhone being light years ahead of Samsung at this point, and about how it's going to take forever to catch up. What's Samsung going to do now? And I took that to heart until Dave just said what he said. Golly, when have we heard that before? Oh, wait, I know. Every time a new phone comes out, they always say, this is the greatest ever. I'm out. Dude, how about you? iPhone 8.
I got to be honest with you. I'm on the iPhone 5S still, and I'm stubbornly holding on because prior to that, I was a every generation phone upgrader, and I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me where we live in a world where where it's normal to buy $1,000 phone, right? That just doesn't sync with me. And I get that it's powerful and it's a mini computer and all that, but at the end of the day, I'm not an iPhone. Most people aren't. We so surpassed the resolution that we really need every day. Most people are posting on Instagram on phones that big. So 1.3 would be still perfect if you're talking about most phones. So yeah, I think it's great, and it's great that more people are shooting than ever, and it's great that the world has more pictures, and it's great that people can share experiences. But I think at some point, I think we're enough. It's kind of like the discussion with 4K, 8K, 16K TVs. That's big. It's bigger and it's faster, it's better. But can you even tell what an 8K TV would look like in your living room, right? Can you tell what a 24 megapixel Instagram post looks like? And so that's where I have a hard time reconciling dropping a lot of good money on the phone. And if you want it, it's great, it's fantastic. But with $1,000, you can probably buy yourself a ticket somewhere and go find a good story. And that's and use your old iPhone, and that might be a little more rewarding.
Yeah, I think the propagation of camera phones and their improvement over time has been great. Like I said, I shot with a quality camera phone when I first got my first phone that had a camera on it, And I love what is going on right now because honestly, 90% of the time, I'm pulling out my my phone to take pictures of like my family or something like that. When I use, or the camera I use the majority of the time, I've got a GH4, GH5. I've got these 20 megapixel, 16 megapixel cameras, and honestly, they collect dust most times. You know, and I'm so grateful that camera phones have come, you know, into the vogue, if you will, that they are now, and that, you know, they can capture this stuff, you know, with high quality. Because if they couldn't, you know, a lot of memories would be, you know, captured still, but they would be, you know, really low res. And yeah, back in the day, you had, you know, standard definition cameras and standard definition, you know, video cameras that, you know, shot what they shot. But, you know, then you also had film cameras and whatnot. So I don't know. I would shoot a lot more film if the video cameras and the phones today, you know, weren't up to speed. If this were 15 years ago or 20 years ago, perhaps I would, you know, be shooting all my family photos on film like back in the day. But, you know, I'm glad that I can whip out my camera and take an image that is, you know, going to be high enough quality for me to print. Like, for instance, we printed out a bunch of photos for, you know, Amazon was offering a deal last Christmas where they were, you know, giving, you know, selling prints for very inexpensive. And a lot of the photos that we printed were from the phone because it's just that high quality. So I look forward to seeing where we go in the future with this. Like, for instance, why stop at 2 lenses? Why not do 3 lenses or 4 lenses or
16 lenses?
16 lenses. What is that? That one phone that can do that.
Yeah, that exactly. That one camera they had. Yeah.
So, you know, more power to it.
And now
you know,
I was gonna say, what's Yashica up to? Yashica's announcing some mind-blowing advancement in digital photography coming out.
I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Yashica?
Yashica?
They used
What
to
is
be a
it?
big film camera.
Yeah, he's going
Yashica,
old.
well, yeah, film. Yeah, that was my first camera. Was a Yashica. That was my first film camera back 90s.
You know what I'd like to do is I'd like to buy a phone that had that has a, like, you have to actually stick film into it. You know, it's like it's the phone, but you stick the film, and you gotta wind it up, and like you can, you know, you can see a preview of what you're shooting, but you have to actually take snap the picture with film. I think that'd be
Could
great.
you then scan that film? Could you then develop the film, scan the film, and put it on the internet? Because that'd be
you
awesome.
do it all via the phone. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do it by the phone. Oh, I see. And then you have your negative too.
Yes.
That that would do very well in Brooklyn. That would sell a ton in Brooklyn.
So you're using the iPhone 5S, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You know, I'm more stubborn about it than anything. It's just, it was the point, is like, stop taking my money, and now it's just a point of pride. But I already feel the software is crushing it right now. So, you know, just really slowing it down. So I really need to update. I might get the 8, but I'm waiting for that final software update where Apple just hoses my phone. Then.
Yeah, the last iPhone I owned was the iPhone 5 before I switched to Android platform, and I was just getting bored with iPhone at that point. And, you know, I would say, you know, just like I would tell my friend of mine who stuck with the original iPhone up until, like, while I was using the iPhone 4S or something like that, and I would tell him, listen, I get it, you're staying with the old iPhone because it works, right? But know that you are paying the same amount for, like, data and whatever your data plan is that I am. But I can access data much quicker because I am on a more modern network with a faster phone. So just know that, you know, you're paying for this access to a network, but you aren't able to take advantage of it to the degree that which people who have newer phones can because of your desire to stay with the older phone. Yeah. So, you know, if you don't use a lot of data, then, hey, go for it. Great. You know, be happy with that. But, you know, I'm a data hungry guy, and I love using all my data. So. Although right now I'm using an older phone that I had, my last phone, because one of my current phones got crushed by a car. So, you know, unfortunately, I'm in that position. That's for a story for another day. But anyways, looking forward to the iPhone. So I would say, if you're going to upgrade, wait till the iPhone 10 comes out and get that, because that'll be like light years. It'll be going from, you know, for you, it'll be going like from the 1800s to like 2100 in terms of like technology jump.
Right.
Then you can have the iPhone 10 and you can keep that for like 10 years and it'll still be like, you know, high tech. So
Maybe I'll wait for maybe I'll wait for the 15. But
iPhone, I can't wait for the iPhone 30.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the phone to get right there. Let me tell you.
That's right. Woo. That's right.
All right. Well, I think that kind of ends today's show. I think we're very good. We can kind of call it a day, call it a show. Where can people find out more about you?
You can just Duylinhtu, DUYLINHTU at all the social platforms. I'm there. I'm usually pretty active on all of them. So find me and my stuff there.
Okay, great. Ron, do you have anything to plug, either of you? Anything you want us to check out?
Soon we'll be
AroundTheLens.com.
Murphy's. Yeah, please watch Around the Lens. Subscribe. Give us 5-star review on iTunes. Continue watching Eagle News in the Philippines, and you'll see J. Murphy's part 2, 3, and 4 of his interview series coming up in the near future.
When does part 2 come out, Ron?
You know, you just got to stay tuned. It's one of those things. You just got to watch every night and hope you come up. I don't know.
You're keeping me in suspense, buddy. I'm so like
Filipinos love.
I gave people tease with part 1 and like just keeping them like, you know, on the leash for part 2. Come on, man. This isn't Rick and Morty. You can't wait a year and a half to release the next season. But anyways, all right. Yeah, like I said, if you'd like to find out more about us or the show, please go to AroundTheLens.com. Please rate us highly in all of your social media platforms, all of your podcasting platforms. This is, you know, if anything, you know, you are supporting the show by giving us a rating because you're essentially highlighting the show and giving us more visibility on these platforms and hopefully bringing in more listeners, readers, watchers, whatever. So please, at the minimum, do me a favor, leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. I would really appreciate that. Besides that, this has pretty much been Around the Lens, episode 93. I've been your host, David J. Murphy, for Ron Hamilton and Duylinhtu, right? Duylinhtu.
Yeah,
again, for Ron and Do, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 93, and we are out.